everyone, and welcome. We're going to call this meeting back to order at 6:43 p.m. and the clerk will lead us in the pledge. Kathleen?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board members, may I please have a motion and a second that we approve tonight's agenda as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Thank you. At this time, we're going to open the public hearing for the district emergency response plan, and then after that, we will have a period of public comment. And I think we have presenters. Dr. Putnam?
We do. I'm really excited to introduce to you George English, our Director of Facilities, and Brandon Fox, our Security and Preparedness Manager. They have been waiting to talk about our safety plans all year. They're pumped up.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you both for being here.
Well, thank you for having us. So actually, I'm going to turn the floor over to Brandon to start with. He's going to go through the first few slides that we have, and then I'll close.
Sure. All right, so tonight George and I are talking about the district-wide school safety plan, how it works and what it looks like. You can see in the first two bullets that there are two laws that, oh, thank you.
Oh. Come on.
I got you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Dan.
That require this for every school district in the state. The first is the New York State Commissioner's Regulation, and the second is the Safe Schools Against Violence in Education, or the SAVE law. Both laws set the minimum requirements of a school, of the district-wide safety plan, and the building level emergency response plans. I can assure you that we far exceed the minimum requirement. These plans include policies and procedures relating to and responding to certain types of threats, and threats in that reference is sort of a broad term that I'll cover in just a minute. The district-wide plan is a public document that has to be posted on our website per the regulations. We share this document with the New York State Police, the Sheriff's Office, and the Brighton Police for their review and their feedback. And then we provide it to the New York State Education Department per the regulation as well. The plan itself, as a whole, is sort of an overarching theme that sort of guides the public, or I'm not sorry, not the public, but the sort of the building decisions and the the specific plans for each building. But as a public document, it's not something that we put our confidential information, and I'll go into the building specifics in just a minute. Per the state, the plans must be presented at a board meeting and must be available for public comment for 30 days. So unlike the district plan, the building level plans are not shared with the public and are sent to the state through the New York State Business Portal. We also share these plans with local law enforcement and other emergency responders that correlate with each building. So specifically for our district, India Landing, we would share our plans both with the Monroe County Sheriff and the Brighton Police, EMS, and fire departments then for both towns. But for the high school that's here in Penfield, it would only be the sheriff, not the Brighton Police, obviously. And then on the next slide, we have some examples of some of the threats that I referenced in the second slide. So plans in the building-specific plans would include how to deal with multi-hazard responses, building-specific situational responses, facility-related emergencies, medical emergencies, transportation, crime scene protection, and relocation or reunification. And then other pieces that are part of that New York State plan that are a bit newer are providing maps for each school. And then as of last year, they started to get very specific where they wanted the maps to include where water shutoff and gas shutoffs are involved in the schools. And then they also wanted aerial photos of the surrounding areas of the buildings to get an idea of what is around each building. And now George is going to
Okay.
go through the district plan.
So back to our district plan, we did make a lot of changes this year, and mainly we made those changes because if you remember last year reviewing this document, it probably took you all weekend over Memorial Day weekend, because it was 123 pages. We've followed the guidelines and reduced it to 23 pages. The building level plans are where all the details should be, not the district-wide safety plan. So we tried to make it a usable document that, in the event of an emergency, could actually be referenced and used. 123-page document, you're like, I don't even know where to turn. It's so confusing. So that was the reason, and this was done in conjunction with our Health and Safety Committee. So they are a large part of this, putting this plan together. The plan does have, and this just highlights each of the areas. The guidelines are basically a summary of the laws that we have to follow. The first section that is really, really important to us as a district is risk reduction, prevention, and intervention. And that's really a culture thing. And our culture here in Penfield is to do all we can to mitigate any risk. And we're proud of that culture, and we try to cultivate that because that's really, really important. And preparedness is the next section. That's really critical. We had this year a training exercise that was very, very helpful. And those more tabletop type exercises and training, that's a big part of being prepared. General response procedures, this is the largest area of the plan. It's just general guidance, and again, the specific details for these areas are in the building level plans. Recovery is how we are going to support each other afterwards. And then, the building level emergency response plans, that's just a small section of the safety plan, but it does reference what's required to be in there. And finally, we cover emergency closings, district evacuations, and early dismissals. So that's really what's now, in our district-wide safety plan, and it follows exactly what the states and laws require us to have. And then Brandon didn't mention this, so we are required to present this every year. It has to be reviewed for 30 days, and then you as a board have to approve it, and it has to be implemented in place by the 1st of September. So this, was brought to you by the district-wide health and safety team. We actually spent several of our meetings this year talking about this plan, more than we have in the past, because we wanted to make it useful and better than it was before. So. Any questions or comments?
Board members, questions on the plan? No questions. I actually have a question.
Yeah.
Which is a surprise. The building level plans, if all the details are now in the building level plans and they're confidential, how's the training handled for that at each building? Is that like through the drills and stuff that you do?
Yeah, so each building is required to have 4 meetings per year to talk about their plan and talk about their building-specific responses. So the principal of each building will put together their team, which makes up their incident command structure for that building, and then they'll go through a lot of scenarios to talk about the what-ifs, so that everyone is on the same page on how to respond if there's an emergency.
Right.
Great, thank you. That
And
makes sense.
developing the building level plans is done under Brandon's supervision too. So he's very involved in making sure that, that the safety teams from each building are including the things that they need to include. So Brandon's amazing.
We know that.
I just have a quick question to the building level emergency response plan. Do you actually call that the blurb like it does in the slides?
I have never used the term blurb,
No.
but
But all the laws and guidelines do. They do.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
hopefully that was exciting as you were looking for.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're very pleased.
Oh, they're not going anywhere. You have to read this
Oh.
next piece.
No,
They
I
can,
know.
they can sit
Oh,
down.
I didn't
Thank
know
you
if
both.
somebody had to be here, like if they had a question.
Yep.
So because this is the open public hearing, we can take public comment. If there's anyone here that wants to come and ask a question, they'll come back up and answer it. I just didn't want them to ask us about the blurb or something, and I'd be like, I have no idea.
I knew they'd be here.
Oh, okay. So there's no questions at this time. Please remember that it will be on the website, and then they have 30 days. They can email Kathleen any comments. All right, and that closes the hearing at, I need a time, 6:53. All right, sold. All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
English and
guys.
Mr. Fox.
That was great. All right, board members, we are on number 5 on your agenda. May I please have a motion and a second that the board approves the consent agenda as submitted for this evening?
So moved. Second.
Questions or comments on that? No? All those in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Thank you. We have a treasurer's report this evening. May I please have a motion and a second that the treasurer's report, including cash fund, general fund, school lunch report, and revenue expense budget report for the month ending March 31st, 2023 be approved?
So
Se-
moved.
Second.
Any questions on that? All those in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Thank you. And that brings us to special reports.
Great. We do have a special report this evening. We have our capital project review. So those wonderful members from Campus Construction, if you want to join us up here, we can get you.
Sure, why not?
Yeah. I'll let the three of you introduce yourselves, and I know many, obviously, board members know you as well. We're really excited for you to give us a capital project review. We haven't had one of these in a while, but now as we enter our capital project, actual putting machines in the dirt time of year, we're excited. So I'll turn it over to you. There's a clicker there as well.
Okay?
So, yeah, so we don't have a fancy slideshow to go through like we normally would, as we're just getting into construction. So we'll start with introductions. I know there's some new faces on the board, so congratulations. I'm Jared Miller. I'm a project executive with the project. I oversee the day-to-day with this project.
I'm Gianna Jengo. I'm the project manager for all the Penfield School District projects.
And I'm Gary Hoffman from campus. I was Jared for 16 years, so kind of passing the torch a little bit tonight. We're all in good hands, but thank you for tonight. We appreciate the opportunity to come here this evening and report to you.
Yeah, so the basics of what we're trying to present to you tonight is we were able to get phase 1 of this project out to bid. It was a bit of a struggle to get it to that point where we could actually get it to bid through some factors that weren't controllable by the district. It was held up with SED for quite some time. We were able to get it out of SED and approved, get it on the street and get it bid in what we would consider historically a bad timeline to get a project of this size out on the street. But with Gianna and some other members of our team, we're just 3 of many that are on this project. Bid solicitation, heavy communication with the contractors. We got a great turnout. I think it was roughly 28 contractors came out and bid this project.
Yes.
It's probably double what a normal project would see. We saw favorable numbers, which we'll get into the details of. And we're now at the point where, bearing approval of these contracts, we will have shovels in the ground with starting to work on Thursday of this week. So
Ready to go.
Yeah.
very exciting. I know this project has been a long time in the making, but we're finally right to that starting line, and we're going to go. So the contractors are all very eager to get started. And I'll have Gianna run through the details of each of those contractors and basically where the numbers fell.
Sure. So for the site contractors, we had 6 total bidders. The lowest bidder chosen was DDS Construction. The general trades contract, we had 6 bidders for that scope. The lowest bidder chosen was D'Agostino Construction. For the mechanical scope, we had 8 total bidders, and the lowest chosen for that scope was T-Bell Construction. For the plumbing scope, we had 3 bidders, and the lowest chosen for that scope was Thurston Dudek. And so started the electrical scope. We had 2 bidders for the electrical, and Billatier was chosen for that. And for the fuel island scope, there were 3 bidders, and LaValle was chosen for that scope.
Yeah, so real quick, sorry to jump in, but the way we break out these projects is we split them into smaller contracts to basically hone in on their discipline and make it a more bid attractive package for them. So that's why you see more contracts than you normally would on a project like this. We thought it would be beneficial to split out things like a site contract because there is so much site work, and a fuel island contract because it is such specialized work. In a market where other projects have seen 0 bidders after going out on the street twice for electrical, it was a pretty hefty lift for Gianna and her folks to reach out and get 2 bidders on this project. 2 good bidders, one of which was on our last project we had a ton of success with. So all of the contractors that were the apparent low responsible bidder, and we'll get into that quickly after, they're all good contractors, and most of them have experience in this district. So it's very positive moving forward.
So just about 2 weeks ago, we did have D-scope meetings with all of the apparent low bidders that I just listed. We have, normal questions that we ask each of the contractors, and basically the main point of the meeting is, do you feel comfortable with your number, and do you feel confident enough to perform work on this project? So all of the contractors responded accordingly, and all are comfortable with their numbers submitted. So we feel comfortable with that as well.
Yeah, so we did have a bit of an anomaly where we did have a low site bid that came in significantly low on bid day. And while financially that feels like, oh, that's awesome, that number is really good, it helps our budget. As construction managers, we throw a flag, because if someone is, and I believe in this case they were roughly 20% lower than the other contractors, with contracts of this size, when you're that low, you're not making money. You're starting a project off not being able to build this project. So part of that de-scoping process that Gianna described, we had to vet the contractors and make sure they carried all aspects of the scope that are in the documents. Did you price everything that is shown in those plans to make sure that the district in the end is going to get everything that they're buying from these contractors? So we did have the low bidder pull out on the site contract. They issued a letter that basically says they had a mathematical error and missed a few things, and ultimately the project is better for it. The dollars are not, but the project is better for it because we have confidence that the second low bidder or the responsible bidder did carry everything. So we made sure to go through with a fine-tooth comb on all aspects of the project with all contractors, but we honed in a little bit more with the site contractors because the first contractor didn't have everything covered. So we have nothing but confidence moving forward with all these contractors that were listed on our letter of recommendation.
And our budget's rock solid. We're in a good spot.
Just to touch on budget, just looking at the surface of it, way back when we initially put this budget together for the project, I know a few of you were still here. We were looking at roughly $24 million for this phase of the project.
Which is just the transportation and building facility on Plank in Jackson.
Correct.
That's all we're talking about right now.
There's another phase that
Yep.
we're not even there yet.
Yes, there's big picture.
Phase
There's
1 of a
there's
3-phase project.
Exactly. So the original budget for this project was just over $24 million. Between the time we put this budget together, a number of factors have come into play. We were able to connect to sewer on Jackson, or on Plank. Huge win, yeah. We also saw the the new rules that came forth regarding electric buses and how we would be required to have some infrastructure for those. And, you know, you have to think ahead, right? They're not required now, but are you going to be redoing this parking lot before you need all the infrastructure in place? No, you're not. So the decision was made to move forward with the future, right? Installing all the infrastructure for these buses. Part of the connection of the sewer was changed, sort of, we won't say last minute, but at an inopportune time that was close to bid, that changed some things. We have a force main connection that now goes out to the road, has to be pumped.
By the county,
Yeah, by the town.
by the
actually.
town, rather, sorry.
So there were a number of factors that went into it. We are technically over that original budget by just under $1 million. The amount of components and extra items that were put into the project are exceeding the $1 million mark. So budgetarily, we're looking at the additional electrified buses. We're looking at additional sewer. We're looking at other regulations that the DEC required of the project. So in the grand scheme of things, yes, the dollars are more, but you're actually getting more. We had to put more into the project, so the dollars that are associated with it are obviously higher. So to tie it all together, and I apologize for rambling, all of the numbers compared to where we were at with our estimates are really good numbers. They're solid numbers. They're a lot better than we would have anticipated. So we feel as though this project is 2 thumbs up and ready to move forward as long as everyone else is on the same page.
And I'm not sure if it was mentioned yet, but we had 6 alternates that were also part of the bid numbers, and those are all part of those numbers that we shared with you tonight. So that's all included. We're doing all of them. Those include additional bus parking, additional vehicular parking, the storage building that's right next to the transportation building, the courtyard that goes between the 2 buildings, dumpster enclosure, and then the 4th vehicle lift in the repair base.
So in the end, we're asking for the board to award the contracts with the alternates as we've prepared a letter of recommendation based on all that Jared and Gianna spoke about tonight. So we're asking for your approval of those this evening.
Yeah, the totals for all contracts is $25,088,670.73. Again, great numbers based on, one, bid environment, you know, all the things that happened with the economy in the past few years. Really, really solid numbers. So with that, we'll open it to any questions.
Thank you. Board members, questions?
Jared, you mentioned the DEC requirements, and I think what you said, just correct me if I'm mistaken, that it is that reasoning that we're $1 million over budget? Is that correct, or did I misunderstand?
No, so that's just part of it. So there were some drainage requirements that required some additional ponds or changes with the earthwork to account for some of the drainage areas.
Oh.
So it changed some of that earthwork a bit on the site side of things. Most of the dollars that caused the overage were due to the electrical infrastructure and things of that nature.
And that was the state requirement for the electric buses?
Yep.
Okay.
It was being prepared for the
Right.
requirement.
Right, I
So-
understand.
But what's also amazing is these numbers were developed well over a year ago.
Well,
And
that
we're-
was another question, and that I didn't know if anybody else raised their hand, but I was wondering about that because of what prices have done with lumber and labor and everything.
Yeah, we're averaging 20% a year inflation in construction
Really?
while this project was being developed. So we accounted for that when we built the original budgets.
Mhm.
To the best of our ability, we built that in. So to be at the number you're at tonight and still be able to award all the alternates and recognize what the town's changes were to the sewer and the
Yeah.
electrical and the DEC, it's a home run. It
Yeah.
really is.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Just, can I add, one of the pieces I think is, and touch upon is, being that it's a 3-phase project. So while right now, and I mean, honestly, in any of our lives, $1 million over budget would, I'd be living on the street, so I understand it. But it's within that 3 phases, so knowing that we're able to add all the infrastructure for the potential of electric buses and not have to worry about that down the road. The changes around the town, they referenced the sewer. We have to purchase a pump to pump the sewage up to the sewer. And so little things like that, they do add up, but it's also all the alternatives that are in there that we originally had talked about, like if these were really huge over budgets, we wouldn't be able to do the alternatives where they bid it. So like we'd have to say no storage building or no additional parking. We're able to do all of those plus the increase of the cost of goods and labor and be $1 million over in this phase of the budget, knowing that we've got 2 more phases that we can play around with and go.
Right.
But ideally, this project has all hindered around or hitched around the transportation facility. That's the big part. That's why it's phase 1.
Yeah, and it's important to note, the district, the design team, and campus, we all met a number of times to discuss some of these overages. We knew going into these bids where the numbers were going to come in at, or we had a projection of where we thought they were. We did everything we could, the district did everything they could to adjust their expectations and take a look at any way we can save from the design to reduce the cost. And what it came down to is, in order to achieve the building that you guys need to operate, the only way to make that number lower would be to simply make the building smaller. So that's not to say that this is going to be just a everyday pole barn, but it's not a big extravagant building that was done hastily and not with budget in mind. So every thought was put into this to make this as efficient as possible, to the point of we didn't want to sacrifice the programming or the square footage of the building.
And the electrical infrastructure is in this project. You'll never get it for less than what you got it at that bid 2 weeks ago.
Oh, certainly not.
Never, you got it the best price you'll ever get it at. If it was delayed, it'll be significantly more expensive down the road.
Yeah, and when you talk about the buses, the infrastructure, I agree. I don't see it as additional spending; it's more as advanced spending. And with the inflation,
Exactly.
That's that thing that comes ahead. When you talk about the infrastructure for the buses, is this including all the transformers or whatever power connections, or is this really like places to put conduits so we can retrofit without much impact?
This is getting services to the building and having the conduit in place for all the bus chargers. It's getting you teed up for having a electric fleet.
Okay.
So it's working with the public utilities to make sure that we size everything correctly, and physically getting the power from the street to the building.
Okay.
So it takes all of that into account.
So right now, we're let's say, over-engineered for today, but appropriately engineered for tomorrow.
Yep.
And we didn't know 2 years ago what we know today about the electrification of buses. And so that's all cooked into this. It's all baked in now.
So with that, and this, I don't know who this would go to, for the bus electrification, are there monies, state or federal monies that go along with that?
I'll answer, but I know I got the guy next to me who can give you the right answer.
So this is a big question. The answer is yes. There's a lot of resources available. One, we're eligible for New York State transportation aid, right? Just like we would for anything else. The EPA did put forward a $500 million grant last year. They turned it into $1 billion because nationwide there was so much interest. We applied. Unfortunately, there were only 2 districts in the state that received any funding. We weren't one of them. Recall back to last November, the state put a ballot referendum forward to the voters to say I think it was $500 million for green initiatives, and part of that is going to be earmarked specifically for New York school bus electrification above and beyond that transportation aid ratio. They haven't rolled out exactly how those dollars are going to be dispersed, but it's going to be part of this 2027 mandate packaging. The EPA is putting forward another package this summer, of which we will be applying again. It's a little bit of a different application process, but again, it's a significant amount of dollars that are available. So there are streams to kind of mitigate against some of these enhanced financial costs. But even just the pure New York State transportation aid is still a pretty good number. That's 70% aid ratio all day. Everything else we get is above and beyond. So yes, there are opportunities, there have been opportunities, and there will be more opportunities as we move forward.
So we can work to offset that increased price through these other funds.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then you
Krista?
covered, I think that's everything I have.
Sorry, Mark.
Oh, no worries. Hi, folks. I was just wondering, in the planning of this new facility, how eco-friendly, how green were we thinking when we were purchasing materials, when we were planning and designing, and how is that going to support the environment?
So I know just the type of building that it is, it's a sustainable type of building because it's low maintenance. It's it meets all of the energy codes, which are, nowadays is saying a lot. There were studies done during the development of the project to look at things like solar panels and things like that. I don't know if you guys have that to share, but I mean, not obviously right now, but there was a study done to see the benefits of those types of green infrastructure components that would make sense for this type of building. I don't think many of them applied just because the paybacks on them and a number of different reasons. But there's a good report that was put together for this project that you can take a look at for that aspect of it.
All right.
The cost-benefit ratio wasn't there for a lot of items, such as the solar. It just wasn't
Right.
the investment for what the return was.
Right.
But a lot of it is make ready, right? We're
Right.
going after the electric buses with the project. The building itself has high efficiency boilers. Everything is extremely efficient. LED lighting.
Yep.
This isn't your average building. The buildings that we put together with these projects are not. They're not just go and buy an incandescent light bulb anymore.
Right.
There's a lot of thought that goes into it, and the codes that we have to follow for them are extremely efficient. So there's been a lot of that. The district looked to go above and beyond that, and it just wasn't feasible for this project. But
Okay.
that's all really well detailed in that
The
little
The
report.
building envelope is significantly insulated.
Okay.
So to minimize heating and cooling costs.
Right. Yeah. Because
I
it's a
can-
big building. Right?
Yeah, I
It
can
is.
add, they referenced a document, and I checked with Dan. I think the board has that, but I can't remember if it was last school year. So I can resend, but we did a study in terms of what are some of those options. It really becomes that cost benefit. So one, I might get it wrong, but it's like the geothermal heating and cooling. So it's like digging holes, and really the efficiency isn't there yet. So we have people there in the summer and want to make sure that it's going to be as cool as it should be.
Sure.
So I'll resend that document and make sure that did the cost benefit of all the different options. And I know we work through with the Sustainability Committee, our environmental club at the high school, in terms of part of that conversation.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So, you talk about the efficiency of it. Do we have any ideas of what the operating costs of that building will be relative to the current buildings?
That would be a George or Dan question. As far as the cost per square foot to run this building, it's significantly less.
Okay.
Everything is well above and beyond as far as just insulating this building, right? I'm sure if it was possible to make the existing building as efficient and run as smoothly, and they would have taken advantage of that. The size wasn't there, the logistics weren't there, but among the other factors, the new building offers that much more with the efficiency components.
Thank you.
Other questions? This is exciting.
It is.
It really is.
We have a groundbreaking
And
coming
yeah,
up
I was
soon,
just
too,
gonna
right?
say, we have a groundbreaking ceremony scheduled for June 7th at 3:30.
We're coming. Right? I think we're all
Awesome.
coming.
We'll bring
Yeah.
plenty of hard hats.
We're excited. I might have mine from the last capital project. I think it's rolling around in my trunk, unless one of my kids stole it.
It's exciting. This has been in the works
Yeah.
for a very,
Very long time.
very long time. So to get to this point is pretty cool. Many, many, many years.
I know, right? It's so fun.
Yeah, so I met, just as a reminder, I met with former board member Barbara Babiars, and she brought with her a document when she, not a document, it's a folder I have, that she collected her first year on the board. So we're talking a while ago, and it was about the need for a new transportation facility. So, you know, we've been.
16 years ago.
Yeah, so we're well over, it's been a conversation for well over 20 years that the district realizing being on a 4-acre lot that we have been on since the 60s, that, you know, just a simple number of buses, the size of buses, the fleet, the transportation employees, the B&G employees, we're long overdue for another space. And so just I appreciate from the district, the Board of Education site throughout the years to know that. If many of you have toured the current facility, it is not a great place. And so we're really looking forward. This is really exciting to realize that we can actually have all of the people who drive a bus park at the site, because that's not happening now. And have a meeting together. There's a lot, and so just, you know, campus, you know, works for the district to do this, but really have been great partners in this work in terms of really digging in the numbers, really being thoughtful with dollars and how we can make things work. And so just, I really appreciate all of your work and the meetings we've had, and the number of changes and tweaks, and you know, prior to going out to bid, because I know the board's aware it was sort of like delayed because it sat at New York State facility planning for so long, and we were all Dan and I were making calls and emails and trying to be really nice to try to see what was happening. You know, but I was at a point where I was like, well, we're throwing everything out, you know, but it really came back with some incredible bids. Really, it was. We've been waiting for this for a long time. It's necessary, and I'm really looking forward to having a place that our drivers and our B&G facility, our mechanics can be proud of. We put a lot of dollars into making sure that all of our buildings that students are in, you know, look good and they can be proud of, and it's long overdue that, you know, our crew that are members of Team Penfield get to say the same thing and really are proud to come to work. So, and it helps for all of it. So.
And I think you and Dan, George have aged a year. You know, it's just going through
Absolutely.
this process. The state just put us through the ringer. So thank you for your patience as well. You guys
absolutely.
Have been troopers through it all. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Just want to be really positive before we really get into the work, and then, you know.
That's great.
It'll be all right. Oh, yeah.
You guys are good.
It'll be okay.
We've accounted for a few.
We have.
They're decorative rocks.
So not to add anything on, but in meetings moving forward, when we do present, Gianna will have a lot more. I mean, this is very exciting, but we will have a lot more of the visual aspect to it, especially with all of the work with our ESSER project going on at Indian Landing. We'll kind of combine some of those and give you guys a little visual walkthrough of where the projects stand. I don't know if we do those quarterly or however often, but we're looking forward to going through those with you moving forward.
So as some of you know, in the past, we've done monthly reports, so we'll continue to do that.
Yep.
And then, as Gianna will report, we'll come back and have photos and show you progress being made at the project.
And now that we're actually in the phase of building and doing this, is then the board's aware we'll bring back our regular facilities committee meeting. So now that we actually have a facility to really talk about and look through, we'll do those as well through Dr. Driffill's office, myself, and members from campus and SEI. So we'll start that back up come July-ish.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions? All good? Thank you. Cool, thank you.
You are all welcome to stay through the whole board meeting, but if you leave, we understand.
Are you asking us to
That
leave?
goes to Mr. English as well. You're happy to, it's a beautiful day. And that concludes special reports.
Great, thank you. All right, that brings us to our student representative. Hi, Lila.
Hi, good evening. So just here at PHS, the NHS induction for current juniors was last night, and 109 juniors were inducted, which is making this the largest class NHS has ever had.
Wow.
AP Physics went on a field trip to Darien Lake yesterday for Physics Day, so all the schools in the area, they all come together to go to Darien Lake to go on the roller coasters and learn about the different physics of roller coasters. That was a lot of fun for those classmates. AP Bio classrooms are raising baby chicks to learn about imprinting and operant conditioning. The robotics team went to the New York State Capitol for STEAM Day, which was hosted by Assemblywoman Jen Lunsford. And the senior ball was last weekend at Casa Larga and was a great success. There is a spring chorale concert this evening at 7:30. And tonight was also the senior night for the unified basketball team. And the senior breakfast and Springfest is also next Friday. At Bay Trail, the 8th grade dance was last Friday night and featured the staff band Quiet Lunch. And Project Enrichment opened up opportunities for students to spend the day at Seneca Park Zoo. At the elementary schools, starting at Scribner, the Arts and Education Festival is next Wednesday. And last Friday, all 4th graders went on a field trip to go on the Colonial Bell as part of a hands-on learning experience of the rich New York State history. At Cobbles, 4th graders are learning how to compose music using math. At Indian Landing, they recently had their spring concert, and they featured both the chorus singing and also having American Sign Language interpreters at the same time, which is really cool. At Harris Hill, kindergartners saw the play Honk Junior Little at MCC. First graders are also raising baby chicks similar to the high schoolers, which is kind of cool. Harris Hill students also sang the national anthem at a Red Wings game, and second graders went to the Rochester Science Museum for a field trip last week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions for Lila? What happens with the baby chicks?
So we've been raising them all of last week and this week, and so we're training them to do an obstacle course. It's a lot of fun.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah,
How does that happen?
Yeah, some of them pick it up really easily, some are not. But so at the end, you can either bring your chick home, or our teacher, Miss G, she's like working to find staff members or other kids that might have family friends that want to raise chickens, so they go home to a family, which is really cool. So.
Are you going to take one home?
I am not bringing my chick home. I do not have any room for it. So hopefully it'll go to someone that can take care of it.
I would get in
Well,
trouble
don't
if I
say it
brought a
too
baby
loud,
chick
yeah.
home, I think. That's all I got to say. That's funny.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you.
I was just going to make a comment.
Oh, go
if
ahead,
I
sorry.
could. Yeah, real quick about Darien Lake and the roller coasters
Yeah.
and combining it with physics and everything. I mean, that's just the way the world works. You know, you're out there, you're having fun, you have no clue. You know, you're not even thinking about that. I just love that connection there. Yeah. Just had to say that.
I can tell you our AP Physics students didn't have any fun. It was all about physics that entire day.
Sure it was. I believe that.
I think it's always great in terms of same with AP Biology. There's a lot of work that goes into the advanced placement courses, the exams, because they're nationally given and internationally given. It's May, so you have that time period between May and the end of our school year in June. And so I think it's great finding those sort of authentic opportunities for students.
Yeah.
And the baby chicks, so, there's a long history, because another district, many years ago when I was a principal here in this building at the high school, there was a little controversy in a district, not in Monroe County, but nearby, because the chickens were going to nuggets. And so we did a whole review, and our chickens have never done that. They've always gone to farms to be free-range chickens. And about 5 years ago, the town of Penfield changed the law, the ordinance, that you can now have 7 chickens at your house if you live in Penfield. So we have more and more families who take the chickens.
I guess I could.
All
Maybe-
7.
You know, my parents
Wasn't
might be
us.
more
Our
open to
chickens were
7.
always safe and well loved.
That's really great to know.
Isn't it?
There's many opportunities for
Yeah.
comments here.
Yeah. All right.
We're getting really off track today, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's right on
That's
target.
fun. It's great.
We are at Superintendent's report.
All right,
Back to
great.
you.
So we do have, I just have some student and staff honors, one slide, an update, and then I'll turn to Dr. Driffill for just a couple business updates. Outstanding senior, Emma Natali was recognized as Penfield's outstanding senior at the Outstanding Senior Dinner. This is every school district in Monroe County brings one outstanding senior for each high school. So Penfield has one high school, so one student, and they get two guests. So Emma brought her mom and dad, and it's really great. So this is a great opportunity, and it's all students heading off to graduation, and I always feel a little bad when I say, you won this great award, your prize is dinner with your parents and me. But I will give a plug that this year we move it around, the superintendent group moves it around, and this year it was held at East High School. And the East High School culinary program did the cooking. And it was, and I'm not kidding, it was the best prime rib I've ever had in my life. It was amazing. The students there at East High in their culinary program are amazing. So it was a really great event, and congratulations to Emma. And also Community Champion for Education. Our district was pleased to recognize Tom Dambra, the president and CEO of Family First Credit Union, and the entire Penfield branch as our 2023 Community Champion for Public Education at the annual Act for Education celebration. Family First has supported our district's student art collection for many years. It was also a premier sponsor of this year's 5K race that raised money for the Penfield Education Foundation for student scholarships, and just great support from the credit union. Just so you know, too, the Family First Credit Union started as a Penfield Teachers Credit Union. It was started many years ago as a Penfield Teachers Credit Union, and then over the years turned into Family First. So really want to give back and support our students in many ways. And just please don't notice that I think I'm wearing the same suit in both of those pictures, but they were two different nights. National Technical Honor Society. This is our PHS students who were inducted into the EMCC National Technical Honor Society. I won't read all the names. They're in the agenda, but this is just a huge piece. We talk about National Honor Society, and we talk about lots of awards for students, but this National Technical Honor Society through EMCC really looks at students who are really practicing the trades, heading into trades, and really spending time over at EMCC in half-day programs, and just some incredible strength there from our students. We always give here in Penfield, and just kudos to the Bay Trail students who donated proceeds from the school store to two groups, Children Awaiting Parents and Mighty for Madison, and each organization received a check for $350. So again, this is really from students raising funds through their school store. And as we mentioned, National Honor Society, and I think it's awesome, but it is the largest group we've had, 109 juniors who were joining National Honor Society at the spring ceremony. Just one of the largest groups, a lot of work that goes into it, and very, very proud here in Penfield. I have one update district-wide. So families of K-12 students received through Parent Square the social emotional learning student self-assessment letter. It comes out of Dr. Potter's office, but it is something that directly is from the superintendent and Board of Education supports of our focus on students and social emotional learning. And so this year is our pilot year, and so we give this universal screener in the fall and then in the spring. This year we had it as an opt-in, so because we were starting, we were reviewing, we're taking a look, there was a concern brought to the district's attention around whether it should be an opt-in or opt-out. For any screener that has to do with social emotional learning, we do allow parents the ability to say they wouldn't like their child to take it. We did opt-in, which means you have to actually say you wanted your child to take it. That's because it was a pilot year. We really wanted to take it slow. We shared the screeners. So through Parent Square, if you are a parent, guardian, a caregiver of a student here in Penfield, you can actually open up and look at all 3 screeners to decide. And then next year, as we leave the pilot year, we're looking at continuing a fall and spring implementation of the universal screener for social emotional learning, and as an opt-out, so families would still have the ability to say no thank you. It takes about 10 or 15 minutes to complete. Once you take a look at it, it is pretty simple. And student responses are confidential. We don't share those. And responses help to identify areas where the district can improve and adapt our practices. So this district, thanks to an incredibly forward-thinking Board of Education, has always focused on development of the whole student, social emotional learning, and these universal screeners are very similar to the math and ELA screeners we provide students, so we know where they are and what supports we can do. We use math and ELA screeners for similar ways, but we also look at them to say, what are areas across a grade level that we might need to spend extra time on? And what are areas that we don't need to spend time on because our students have got that figured out and mastered? So it's a similar concept with our social emotional learning universal screeners. It really does offer students a way to do some goal setting and reflection because it's a pre-test and a post-test, sort of beginning of the school year and end of the school year. Provide students with tools to learn and see where they can grow. And it really always falls onto those 5 core SEL competencies we talk about a lot within this district around self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, social awareness, relationship skills. As this board knows and our committee knows, we're adding assistant principals to all 4 of our elementary schools. And while this has been a conversation for a while, we have seen an increase in behaviors at our K through 5 grade levels. A lot of those behaviors are really in a foundation of social emotional learning. So it's about how do you react to a student? How do you have peer conflict resolution? How do you simply get through the day without pushing somebody or goofing around in the hallway? All of these pieces that pre-COVID districts really didn't have to deal with at the K-5 level. And Penfield is not alone. It's across the county, state, and country that it is some social emotional sort of student behaviors that we really want to make sure that we're proactively supporting our students in to help them make good decisions, to make sure that they're aware of their surroundings and that they are able to regulate their own emotions in a positive way, which is something that you really need to learn when you're younger, and it helps you out greatly as you get older. And so for parents, please make sure you take a look at the Parent Square message that just went out. There's a link to all the SEL screeners, more information, and very easy to opt in. And if you're not interested, you don't need to do anything. You don't have to opt out this year. You just leave it alone, and then the SEL screener won't be given to your student. But I really encourage families to go and take a look at it. It's a pretty simple screener, and really, again, about trying to help us understand what we can do better to make sure we support all students across our school district. Questions?
Board members, questions for Tom?
Oh my gosh, I think I did have one and now I don't remember it. If I think of it, I'll come back to it.
Okay. He's still reporting, in this section. You have time.
Okay.
I can go really slow before I turn it over to Dr. Driffill.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Carry on.
All right, I'll turn it over now to Dr. Driffill.
All right, thanks, Dr. Putnam. Good evening, board. Hope everybody's doing well. Just 2 things for me tonight. One is just to kind of circle back to the New York State budget. The state didn't finalize their budget until after our board meeting a couple weeks ago, so just kind of put a bow on some of those things that were outstanding, and then just touch on the board approval of the capital project construction as was presented earlier this evening. So the good news was that, as anticipated and as promised, the state legislature and governor did commit to that 3rd year full phase-in of the foundation aid formula and all of the expense-based aids, so those transportation aids, the BOCES aids, That's great news. We planned for that in our budget. One of the things that was removed was that carve-out this year, that $750,000 that would have been dedicated to a new program. We're already putting those dollars towards our ICOT initiative, but from the mandate perspective, it was removed across the state. There was maybe some idea that they would put forward money for a study or some kind of indication of what state aid packages will look like moving forward for the 24-25 year, but there was nothing pertinent in the budget upon what that'll look like. So it'll be kind of starting fresh again next year to see if the state maintains that commitment to the formula. Will they make any changes to the formula? There's been some advocacy in that kind of regard. But for at least one more year, things are in pretty good shape. Sadly, they did not include the universal school meal funding for breakfast and lunch. There had been obviously a large push on that topic from all of the kind of education advocacy groups. It worked well in 2021 and 21-22. This year with the return to lunch, we're doing okay from a financial perspective, but we have higher unpaid balances this year for whatever reason, higher than we've ever had, probably double. So it's a little bit, trying to figure out why that's the case. So the state did commit to, for districts that have community eligibility provisions, so that's universal school meals for everybody in the district, but in order to qualify for that, you have to have at least 40% of your student population be called what's direct certified. So essentially they have to already be on Medicaid or supplemental nutrition assistance programs. That program really doesn't break even until about 55-60% of your student population is directly certified. So what the state's going to do is step in and say, okay, folks that are 40% direct certified and have opted into the program, they're going to be reimbursed to be made whole on the CEP plan. However, at Penfield, we're only at about 17 or 18% direct certified, so not near that 40% threshold. I should note that the USDA did put forward proposed rulemaking recently to lower that threshold from the federal perspective from 40% to 25%. So it's a little bit closer, but I suspect that this topic will be another advocacy effort again next year. But for at least one more year, and maybe many more, we will have paid meals again next year. So come this summer, the Board of Education will be setting the meal plans for next year once again. Unfortunately, there was no increase in the capital outlay project, so there was talk about bumping that up to $250,000 or maybe as high as $500,000. These are those mini projects that are contained in the budget, but for a district of our size, $100,000 doesn't go very far. It's limited to one building, so it can be useful. It's a great idea in theory. You get the aid back in the following year instead of over 15 years, but you are really limited to that time scope and that dollar scope, and that becomes a real challenge. There was no increase in the BOCES career and technical education teacher salaries. So as we talked about, that number has been frozen around $30,000 for 30 years. I don't know why. I think the state just probably sees it as an expensive aid effort. So once again, that was left off. The retiree earnings waiver was extended for another year. So folks that have retired can come back and work full time without any kind of concern to their pension program. There was a instituted multi-year minimum wage change for New York State, which I'll touch on in a second. Zero emission bus reporting. This has been something that's been asked for just to really deal with the feasibility of this initiative. So starting next year, not this year, the State Education Department is going to solicit all schools around the viability of the electric buses to deliver a report for 2024, and then NYSERDA has to deliver their own report in 2025 ahead of that 2027 year. And I think the SED one's obviously from the school's perspective, and NYSERDA's from the state's grid kind of capacity perspective. So obviously much more to come on that. And then I think we've mentioned it a couple times, but the New York State Division of Budget Transparency report that was put in place for a couple years has been sunset, so that report is going to go away. So there's still the ESSA financial report that we have to submit on a building basis. That's a federal program, but the state one was in addition to that, and it was a very duplicative report, and nobody really ever asked for it. It was very cumbersome waste of time. So glad to see that go away. So I do want to touch on the minimum wage changes real quickly. So obviously, the rest of the state is germane to us here in Penfield. Starting this January, the minimum wage in New York will go to $15 an hour. So that's up 80 cents from the current $14.20. The following year, in 2025, it'll bump up to $15.50, and then again in 2026 to $16. After that, it is by legislative statute indexed to inflation. So instead of going up 50% a year, if CPI is 5%, it might go up 5%. Note where it says with exceptions. So the exceptions give the state some flexibility with regards to unemployment levels. So if the unemployment level in July 2026 is higher than it was in January 2026, they might be able to pull back that scheduled increase. It's all around how the economy is performing, whether or not that'll actually have to come to fruition. But these numbers are now statute, and it looks like they will be something that we are working with. And then finally, as our construction management experts presented this evening, we're really excited about the bid results from 2 weeks ago. I do want to really reiterate that being $1 million over budget isn't really where we are. That $24 million conceptual number was 2 or 3 years old. And then over the course of the last 3 years with double-digit inflation, when we got to the schematic design phase of this and actually submitted this, we thought we were going to be significantly over where we came in. And we really were building some contingency plans and having some hard conversations about phase 2 and 3, what those were going to look like. Because at the end of the day, this is a $25 million award, but it's still a $73 million project. So there's still a ways to go, and there's still a lot of capacity in the budget. So we're really excited about it. As Dr. Putnam mentioned, this is, kind of been in the works on and off for 20 years. And as of, Thursday morning, we're going to really be doing some stuff. So it's exciting. So that was it for me this evening. Open it up to any feedback or questions.
Board members, questions for Dan? Mark?
So I just wanted to, I don't know if it's a question or a comment. You said that there's no increase on the BOCES CTE reimbursement rates, which is, it just seems interesting considering how much emphasis the state has put on increasing education for the trades.
Yep.
And that's, that's really the front line for doing that. And, again, we talk about difficulties in getting staffing, and BOCES is no different. We need to make it easier. We need to be able to get more and better, probably just more, because I'm sure they're very good to begin with, staff to help provide this education and help improve our ability to meet the needs of the trades.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And the proposal put forward by the Assembly and the Senate wasn't outrageous. It was a 3-year phase-in from 30,000 to 40,000, 50,000 to 60,000. It seemed very reasonable.
Yeah, I agree. I was surprised, and that was something that came up at the annual conference in Syracuse. We were at the conference because I popped into the BOCES meeting, and they were discussing that, and I know they were bringing that to Albany. So I was hoping that one would go, and the meal thing, but we have to go back at it.
It's interesting how they, come
Pick
up
and
with,
yeah,
final
what
decisions.
they pick and choose. I don't know.
Yeah.
Late at night and whatever they're doing. So what happens on Thursday? Can I
not
ask that
3 minute
question? Do we know what
reading, at
happens on, what are they doing on Thursday?
Be really clear, nothing until the board votes for those contracts.
Okay, so after
So
tonight,
after
if
the vote, let's
the
chat.
work is starting
Sure,
on
we'll see.
Thursday.
I don't wanna-
Dan
I
said
never,
it's gonna start on Thursday. You don't know? Oh.
Pending the
Pending the board's
Approval.
approval this evening. They're mostly just site work, so moving along a lot of dirt around, getting things ready for
Cool, that's fun.
And as campus, they're ready to go. So they're very hopeful the board will approve, and they can go. So as you drive by, you'll see yellow construction
I did drive by
vehicles.
today there, yep.
They
Some,
do have-
What
they-
are they, not bobcats, what with the big,
Some backhoes
Yeah,
and
backhoes,
diggers,
yeah,
and
right.
I happen to drive a very happy 5-year-old that way to school some days, and he is very excited to see those. So they're just waiting patiently.
yes?
But
That's fun.
Lisa?
Oh,
Before we
did you
end
remember
this,
your
I
question?
remembered,
Okay.
it was a comment. Tom, you had mentioned about all the BOCES. Wait, oh my God, I made a note too. You had a slide. Where is it? Oh, the
about,
Technical Honor Society.
yeah,
And you were talking about EMCC.
Mhm.
And when I went to get my hair done last week, there were 2 interns from EMCC there who were taking, for, I don't know what you call it when it's hair cutting and all that. Is cosmetology or whatever?
I think so, yeah.
Yep.
Yep, so right there, I was just gonna prove your point, or
They have an
speak to your
incredible.
point.
So I know the board. We looked to tour BOCES 1, including EMCC this year, and that didn't happen due to the schedules. We'll get in and take a look with board members in the fall. But they really, since many board members were able to go a couple years ago, they really have revamped all of that.
Oh,
So it's
really?
really amazing.
It was impressive when I was there
Yeah.
last.
Yeah. They had done last time we saw the update to the auto tech, auto service area, auto tech. The cosmetology program now really does feel like you're walking into like a salon.
Yeah.
And so I was over there for a meeting and got to stop in and talk to some of our students and other students from other districts who attend. But it's pretty amazing, and all programs you can step in. I know a number of students from both Penfield and a district I used to work in who went through there and are now working at places like Scott Miller and really
Or owning their
and
own
owning their
place.
own. Yeah,
Yep.
it's really amazing.
Yeah.
So
I know,
Yeah.
I find it amazing. Just all of the different things that go into making everything in our society work.
Yep.
And it comes from all different directions. It starts with, they come in as little kindergartners, and then, through the direction and the programs and the parental involvement and all of that, it's a big deal. And then you go and get your hair done, and you see that there's these 2 young women, and they're still in high school, and they're focused on their future, and they're learning this skill, and I find it exciting, and I'm impressed by it.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
that concludes superintendent reports.
Great, thank you. All right, board members, we are on, where are we? Oh, we are on item 7, public comment. We don't have anyone signed up tonight for public comment. Instructions to participate in public comment are listed in the agenda and available online. Individuals who choose to participate agree to and are bound by policy 1515, which is also available online. We're moving on to item 8, which is our facilities item. So this is our capital project contract approval. And I'm reading this one, right?
Yes.
Okay. Whereas the Board of Education accepts the recommendation of the project architect and the project construction manager and determines that it is in the best interest of the school district to accept the bids and award the contracts as set forth in the May 9th, 2023 letter of recommendation shared with the Board of Education and attached to the minutes of this meeting. Now therefore, the Board of Education hereby resolves to accept the bids and award the contracts for the project as recommended by the project architect as follows. What am I reading? The bids?
I don't think you have to go through all.
I don't have to go through all of them?
They're
Oh,
all-
as listed?
Yep.
Okay, so now, do I just do motion in a second and we do a roll call? Oh, okay, sorry. I'm a little off today.
We haven't
Ca-
done something like this in a while. Capital project related.
It's fine. May I please have a motion in a second to accept the bids and award the contracts for the project as recommended by the project architect?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and then Kathleen's gonna roll call for this. Aye. I almost forgot what I had to do.
Catherine Dean,
Aye.
Nicole Doyley,
Aye.
Mark Elledge,
Aye.
Kristen Harley,
Aye.
Krista Can,
Aye.
Emily Roberts.
Aye.
All in favor, none opposed.
Woohoo! So what's happening on Thursday?
We're gonna move some dirt.
All
Gonna
right.
Move some dirt on Thursday.
Maybe you can bring your son. Stay in the car.
You can, that's exciting.
He's not gonna be there.
I
Be
know.
real clear, no.
I know.
Gotta
We'll
get him- we gotta give him a
we'll
little
drive
hard
by
hat.
and see.
A little
but,
hard hat.
mm.
No,
That'll be
that's what
fun.
I meant. I didn't mean get him out of those. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Okay.
fine. Okay, so we're moving on, item 10 for textbook approval. We had a special report at our last meeting. And did we receive any comments on
We did
any
not.
books? Okay. So may I please have a motion and a second that the board approves the recommended textbooks as presented at the May 2nd meeting, and they're listed in your agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments on that? All those in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Thank you. We have policies for first read in your packet this evening and will also be online. These are part of our review of, we're at the end of our 5-year review, so we're finishing up the 8,000s, and both of these, mainly the changes, there's a lot of changes, but we're adopting the Erie policy. And then we also had a presentation at the policy committee from someone from our library media specialist that explained why they thought that the Erie policies were the way to go. And am I missing anything, policy committee or Tom?
Nope.
All right.
Yeah, they're pretty clear, part of the 8,000 series, as you mentioned. And really, it's around the objection to instructional materials. Our current policy doesn't really say much. And so the Erie BOCES policy from the policy service is pretty clear, has a form, has regulations connected to it. I encourage folks to take a look at it, offer any feedback. Policy committee meets again prior to our next board meeting for second read and hopeful approval.
Anyone have questions on any of that yet? Okay. And that moves us to president remarks or presentations and anything else on health and safety. I know we talked a little bit tonight about the, obviously the hearing, but anything else from the meeting that you guys would like to share?
The only other, I would say, couple of big things were George just went over our turf field and talking about creating some guidelines and some enforcement around that, because we've had some people from different communities coming in and using our fields, but paying trainers to use our fields. So just some conversations about what that might look like to protect our fields, because it is an investment for our community. We got construction updates, which much of what you heard tonight, and then just talked about some summer projects that are going to be taking place. And then our nurses, we had an inspection, our nurses report, we had a chemical hygiene annual review. Our fire inspections were completed on April 4th. That's pretty much it.
Any questions for Kristen? No? Thank you. We also want to share our vote results from last week, which are also available online. The vote was May 16th, 2023, and was certified by the inspectors of election. Our Proposition 1, the school budget vote passed 1793 votes to 652. Proposition 2, school buses, also passed 1893 yes votes and 558 no votes. And Krista and Aaliyah, is that right? Okay. Aaliyah Elleman Turner were elected to 3-year terms commencing on July 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2026. Unfinished business, I just made a note, the annual meeting, Monroe County School Board annual meeting is tomorrow, so I'm going, I think Mark is going, Krista's going, okay.
You're going.
And I don't think you can attend this year, okay.
Yeah, I can't.
So I just wanted to remind those that could attend, and that, plus I wanted to know who else was going. So I could find you when we're there. And then so we can report on that at the June meeting. Anything else, any new business? No? All right. Then I think we can adjourn this meeting. It's 7:56 p.m. May I please have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting?
So moved. Second.
Any questions on that? All those in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.